enjoy working with certain people. But to increase your confidence, I think it's important to have learners working with other students at other times. The classes need to be interesting. One easy way of doing that, getting students focused, is right from the beginning, let the students know what they're going to be doing today. Okay, write it on the board in the corner. I had one teacher, a colleague of mine used to call it today's menu. Today's menu. Today we're going to be doing some listening, some writing, an essay, and we're going to be looking at the present perfect. So this kind of focus for students often helps. And show how you're interested in the topic. Don't just sit there and say, hi, we're now page 43, we're going to read about snails. No. If you're going to do a reading on snails, show the students, generate some fake interest, show some kind of interest either yourself in why you're doing it, or why it's helpful for them, or why it's a useful topic to talk about. Okay? How it's going to help them do it. Show interest. And as I just mentioned, we want to see the relevance of it. We're doing this text because it's a similar topic. Often topics on animals come up in the IELTS test, so it's important we read them. It's important you become familiar with this kind of text and this kind of vocabulary. So help the students see the relevance. And also, it's important that you consider the pairings. As you get to know the students, you'll know who works well together, who doesn't. And it's something you really need to be aware of. Because this can have knock-on effects. They won't do the task well, the classroom dynamic will get worse if you're not aware of these kind of pairings and groupings. I think we also need to consider what kind of skills are practiced. I think it's important in the lesson to have a balance. You need some productive skills and some receptive skills. You need some writing or speaking. Students often obviously prefer speaking, but writing should not be ignored. And you need some receptive skills practice as well, whether it's reading and listening, reading or listening. And on top of that, some writing and vocabulary has also got to be done as well. So just don't have a reading lesson or a writing lesson, mix it up. And look at ways to spice up or adapt dull material. I talked before about a lesson on snails. Make it more interesting. Make it more interesting. Use that text, but try and make it more interesting for the students. YouTube, for example, if you have access to the internet, YouTube videos are a good way of doing it. A clip from a movie you know that's connected to that topic, a song that's connected to that, an anecdote, you could bring in something real, bring in a snail. Bring in something just to make students interested in that reading. Okay? Easily done, easily done. You need to promote learner autonomy. Most students are taking IELTS because they want to go to university, and if you're not autonomous in your learning, students will not do well. So right from the beginning we need to encourage students to become responsible for their own learning. And there are ways of doing this. What we need to do as teachers is just to step back a little bit and give students that power and time to work by themselves or work with each other, not always working off the teacher. Okay? If you are able to, you can direct the students to self-access materials. If you're in a school that has this kind of equipment, that's great. You can help students by telling specifically what they can use. If you have access to the internet, there are thousands of resources out there. In a later lecture, we'll be giving you some suggestions on that topic. And direct students to them and encourage them how to use them. It's important we give students time for reflection. For example, if they did a reading task in class, practice IELTS reading, and they did very badly, maybe they got 5 out of 10. Get the students to think about why did they get 5 wrong. Give them a chance to look at the answers. Why did they get 5 wrong? Was it because they didn't have the vocabulary? They didn't understand the meaning? They knew the word, but didn't understand the meaning in that sentence. Give them time to think about it. This applies to all skills: listening, reading, writing, speaking. Get students to think about what they did wrong and how they can improve next time. Really important, something we often don't do. I think using transcripts for audio material is really useful. Often in the backs of the books there's the transcript. Get the students to find the answers themselves. Don't give the students always the answers. Listen to the recording maybe twice instead of the one time. Get students to check and give them the transcript to double check. And then they can find vocabulary they're not familiar with, and that will also help them with the reflection. Okay? And I think we need to encourage questions. Encourage students to ask you questions as the teacher. Encourage students to work together and ask each other's questions that they're not sure about. And that comes back to the critical thinking as well that I mentioned earlier. We need to personalise the learning process. Okay? We need to take the lesson off the page, make it relevant to the students, get them to talk about their own experiences related to that topic. Great way of getting students to activate their interest with a text, or also to round off a lesson. If you're doing work on grammar, vocabulary, again, get students to personalise that, use that language for their own lives, and that will actually help them. It'll reinforce the language and might actually give them a sentence that will help them actually remember that piece of language. Like for example, students might be talking about their life experiences. Maybe you're introducing a present perfect tense, so, places they've been in their life, cities they've been to. Okay, getting them to talk about it so they can practice this language. And they can do this through an open class, in pairs, sharing their experiences. Therefore, they'll get to know each other better. They'll be using the language more. Okay. There has to be a degree of control if you want the students to remember the language, but getting them to share these kind of personalisation is key. And I think we need to give students the opportunity to respond to the texts, whether it's talking about the topic afterwards or writing about it. It'll help them see the relevance of that text. Often the subject of text that we read about for IELTS are often carried through into writing tasks, so that development of critical thinking I think is really important, and we must give students time to do that. Goal-orientedness. Goals. Not football goals, no. Goals in their learning. Okay? We need to encourage students to set goals, whether it's I need a band 5, I need to improve my listening, I need to do 3, this week I need to learn 10 new verbs. Encourage students to set goals. Try and, if you can, make time with them to encourage them in this goal setting. It could be time. How much time are you going to spend this week studying for this test? What are you going to do? And the goals have to be smart. They have to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Okay? Specific. I'm going to improve my speaking is too general. What are they going to improve? Are they going to improve their speaking part 2? Are they going to improve their speaking about personal topics? Are they going to improve their accuracy, talking about past events? What are they going to talk about? Measurable. How will they know they've achieved their goal? Difficult. Perhaps this could be through practicing in class, feedback from the teacher, the test next week. Attainable. Can they do it? Are they at a sufficient level where they can actually achieve this task? Relevant. And time-bound. How long is it going to take them to achieve this goal? And there needs to be some follow-up from the teacher, or in the class somehow, maybe within groups. Have you achieved your goal? Was it difficult? What more do you need to do? Why didn't it work? What do you need more? And I think that's key here as well. You need to encourage classroom discussion. So students can see that other students are achieving their goals, their mini goals, and that will work. Students will work off each other. To encourage a whole class of students setting goals and achieving them, with the teacher knowing what students' goals are. It could be boarded, it could be a poster in a room, students' names, today I will da-da-da, and by the end of the week we'll have some feedback and you'll see everyone's goals. Just some accountability, I think, also encourages goal-orientedness. I think this is also key. Research has shown that if a student has a positive attitude to the culture of the language they're studying, this will motivate them more. Just imagine students are studying English, they hate England, don't like the language, hate the food, think the country has terrible weather, and they hate everything. Yeah, they don't want to learn the language. But if they have very positive feelings towards that country and that culture, this will thus motivate them more. So students need to be familiarised with them, and obviously as a teacher you need to choose carefully what you look at. So maybe if you're studying takes on England, don't talk about the weather. Or New Zealand, talk about the positive things, talk about the environment. Encourage students to make it a positive association. And share it with the students. What do you know that's great about English-speaking countries, or using English? Maybe your students have no intention of visiting an English-speaking country, so therefore we need to encourage them why it's good to speak English, how they'll be able to communicate with people from Japan, Brazil, Sri Lanka, any country. They can use this shared language. And it needs to be culturally relevant, the material, if you can. Again, lots of this can be accessed on the internet. Material that comes from, for example, from New Zealand newspapers, Britain, America. Try and use stuff that reflects the countries that you're looking at. And you can encourage that positive understanding. If you can hear some negativity, that's natural and probably healthy. But I think we also need to try and encourage some kind of positive approach to what you're looking at. And if you can, using authentic material when you can. Again, internet, a great source. Food labels, packaging, bring the real stuff into the classroom to show this is real, this is what they do. It could be an object, it could be a video on the internet, it could be a poster, a picture, real stuff that show that how English is really used in the cultures you're looking at. And so in summary, the 10 Commandments of motivation. There they are. Be a role model. Create a relaxed atmosphere, present tasks properly, develop a good relationship with your students, increase linguistic self-confidence, make classes interesting, promote autonomy, personalise the learning, set goals, and familiarise the learners with the target culture. 10 things. I don't think they're too difficult. It just requires us as teachers to make that little extra effort. And the benefits are there. They're there to be had. And your teaching will be more enjoyable, and the students will benefit as well. Thank you very much. That was the first lecture for the IELTS project from Quantum Education.